This video was brought to you by CyberGhost VPN. Click the link in the description to get a 79% discount. So over the past couple months, I've made several web shooters that you guys have really liked, and since then you guys have been flooding my inbox with pictures and videos of the web shooters that you guys made at home, and I just want to say that it really inspires me when I see you guys making stuff for my videos. So thank you to all you guys who submitted those pictures and videos. You guys rock. But what about the rest of you? What about those of you who have wanted to make my web shooters but maybe don't have the right materials? Well, that's right guys, I hear you. I've been reading your comments, I know what you guys are saying, and it seems very clear to me that you guys want me to make a web shooter using more simple materials, since some of the materials I used last time, like the spring and the magnets, can be hard to find for some of you. So that is why I've created this web shooter, which uses very basic materials. All I used to make it shoot are pen springs. And by the way, guys, see, I listened to your comments, which is why you should comment down below right now what you want me to make next. Before I show you guys how I made this web shooter, let me tell you about today's sponsor, CyberGhost VPN. In case you don't already know what a VPN is basically something that allows you to change the location of where you're accessing the internet from. With CyberGhost, you can change locations almost instantly with just a simple press of a button, and changing your location comes with a lot of different perks. By changing your location, you'll have access to blocked content in your region from over 30 streaming services, as well as different websites, video games, social media platforms, and basically everything else that's blocked in your country. Another advantage of having a VPN is that you'll be totally safe and secure when using public Wi-Fi. Public Wi-Fi can actually be a very easy means for people to steal your private information, and with public Wi-Fi being so common these days, it's really beneficial to have a VPN so that your information is encrypted and stays safe. CyberGhost hosts thousands of servers across over 90 countries, and with just one subscription, you'll be able to protect up to 7 devices at a time, whether you're on Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, or pretty much any other device. If you use my link in the description, you can get 79% off the original price, which comes out to just $2.75 a month. The best part is that they've got a 45-day money-back guarantee, so it's absolutely risk-free. Again, make sure you click the link in the description below, and thank you to CyberGhost for supporting my channel. I left links in the description to all the materials I used, and also included free downloadable templates, which you can find in the description as well. Also, I numbered all the pieces in the order that they appear in this video, so they should be very easy to follow. The first thing I did was build the general shape of the web shooter using some 1/8 inch corrugated cardboard. I used some white glue to glue the pieces together, and doing that just gives me more time to position the pieces and make sure they line up perfectly before drying. While that was drying, I made what I like to call the stop block, and what the stop block is it's basically this little tiny block made out of popsicle sticks that's going to block the bullet from shooting out of the web shooter until that block is manually lowered. At this point, I connected the stop block to the web shooter using duct tape and super glue. Now it's time to make the barrel of the web shooter, so using a small strip of paper, I rolled up a tube and made sure I had an outer diameter of about 3/8 of an inch before gluing the end of the paper shut. Since this barrel is made out of paper, I thought it would be a good idea to strengthen it using some super glue. On the tip of this web shooter, you'll notice that there's this sort of nozzle looking piece, and for that I thought of using the nozzle from a bottle of Elmer's glue, since it actually has a pretty identical shape and texture. Before I could do that though, I just simply emptied out the bottle of glue into a separate container, because obviously the cap for the bottle will be destroyed. So what I'm going to do with this nozzle is first disconnect it from the rest of the cap, and then from there I can slice off both ends and end up with something that looks like this. Now what we have to do is somehow get this cap to slide over the barrel, but as is, it's a little bit too thick, so all we have to do here is just kind of shave off some material on the inside, and that will allow for a snug fit. Alright, well the next thing I did was make this tiny ring out of some tissue box cardboard and then hardened it with a couple layers of super glue. Once that glue dried, I just simply glued that ring to the end of the barrel. Before this barrel is complete, there's one more very minor detail that is on the nozzle, and that's this little line or groove thing here that you see, and that might seem like a pretty insignificant detail that doesn't really matter, but I would say that it's really the little details that will all sort of add up in the end and make this thing look legit. Now before that barrel got glued onto the web shooter, I painted everything blue first because it's just always easier to paint in small increments versus trying to paint everything after it's glued together. Moving on, it's time to make the bullet now, and for that I'm going to use a toothpick. Of course, the bullet is basically that thing that's going to shoot out of the web shooter and drag all of that string behind it to make it look like we're shooting web. Alright, well here's the secret behind how this web shooter is going to be able to shoot so far even though we're just using pen springs. So the trick is simply to use multiple pen springs and then link them together like this. Now this chain of springs is pretty long as you can see here, and if you were to glue this inside the barrel it would stick out a lot. So rather than gluing it inside the web shooter, I'm going to glue it on the bullet, and then that way when we load the bullet into the barrel, the springs will compress all the way down and create enough tension to burst out of the web shooter as soon as that stop block is lowered. One more thing we have to do before the bullet is complete is wrap this thin piece of paper around the very tip, and what that will do is create a big enough sort of lip for the stop block to actually grip onto, and that way the bullet can actually lock in place before you pull the trigger and release it. Well, now we need to make that centerpiece right there, so to start I'm going to take the cap from an empty Coca-Cola bottle and slice off the top portion of it like this. Now we're actually going to need both of these pieces here, but for now we can set that one aside, and what I'm going to do is wrap some craft foam around the bottle cap. And here you want to make sure that you wrap the foam around the edge that you cut and not the clean edge, because doing it this way will make it so that the side that you cut is face down and then the clean edge will be face up. Next, what I do is I take this additional piece of foam here and carefully wrap that around the bottle cap on sort of like a slant almost. And what that will do is give us this kind of beveled edge look that we're going for, as you can see right there. After that, I went ahead and sliced off this portion of the foam right here to create this opening. And the reason we're doing this is to make room for another piece that we're going to slot in there later on. So now would be a good time to paint that piece blue, and once that dried, I retrieved the other piece of the bottle cap that I cut off earlier, and I'm going to use this for that big red chip that's in the middle. Now, before I can do that, I need to trim it down so it can actually fit inside, because that red chip definitely won't fit right away. Obviously, we don't want this Coca-Cola logo on here, so let's just go ahead and sand that off. And I'm just going to clean it up using a red Sharpie. To add a little bit more depth to that red circle piece, I'm going to take some plastic wrap and color it red. And once that ink dries, I can flip it over and place it over top like so to give it sort of like a shiny glass look. Once that dried, I went ahead and super glued that red circle piece to the inside of the blue piece. Now it's time to make the green light indicator thingy, so to start I cut out a very tiny piece out of some 1/16 inch corrugated cardboard, and this piece is pretty fragile, so a thin layer of super glue helps here. Once I painted this piece blue, I placed a small piece of green electrical tape on the back side of that vent looking part, and that way from the outside it shows green bars. Then I stacked that onto another piece of 1/16 inch cardboard that I offset to be slightly larger, and the reason that piece has to be slightly larger is so that I can take these small strips of tissue box cardboard and create a beveled edge like this. Now we can combine these two pieces together using that opening that we created earlier. I glued that to the center like this and then added some strips of tissue box cardboard to hide the corrugation. Using some more tissue box cardboard, I'm gonna go ahead and make the web cartridge now, which is essentially a little box that all your string is gonna be stored in before it all shoots out. And as you can see, I added a small piece of corrugated cardboard there to kind of close it off. Now that web cartridge is going to slide into that slot right there, but to keep it from falling out, I had to stick a small piece of craft foam to some clear tape and place that inside of the slot to make sure the web cartridge could stay in by friction. And using the foam and tape also actually helps to keep the paint job nice and fresh because it won't scratch up against the sides of the cardboard, but rather it'll sort of cushion it. Now I had to make all those tiny little watch gears that you see all around the edges of the web shooter, so I cut those out using tissue box cardboard. Now, I just want to let you guys know that I didn't include any of these tiny little gear pieces in the template, simply because these pieces are just ridiculously small and detailed that you would literally be better off looking at reference photos and creating the pieces yourself versus trying to use the templates. It's just not practical to use templates for pieces this small in my opinion. But one tip I can give you is make sure you use a razor sharp blade, guys, because there's absolutely no way you'll be able to cut these out with a dull blade. And also just be patient with these pieces. These pieces require a lot of patience and precision, so just go slow and have fun. By the way, I'll leave a link in the description to where I get my knife blades in case any of you are interested, because I buy them on Amazon, which is like so much cheaper than retail for some reason. But yeah, it comes with over 100, so it'll last you a really long time. Now it was time to make straps for the web shooter so I could actually wear it. And to do that, I used a strip of red duct tape that I measured out in advance to make sure it would wrap around my wrist perfectly, so you'll want to do the same as well. Once that strap was made, I attached it onto the web shooter using this additional piece right here that I made out of some tissue box cardboard, and I also added some Velcro on the end here to make it open and close. So now we need some way of being able to pull the trigger, or in other words pull the stop block down so it can actually release the bullet. So what I did was I used some fishing line and attached that to the stop block using a little tiny hole that I made in advance earlier when I was making the stop block. I went ahead and made a loop in the fishing line by tying a double knot, and that loop is basically going to hook onto my index finger, and that's what's going to allow me to shoot the web by flexing my hand. So now we can do a little test run to see if this actually shoots properly. So I can load the bullet into the barrel like this, lock it in, and then flex my hand. But of course we don't want this to shoot just a little bullet, we want this to shoot web, so we need to attach some dental floss onto the back of that bullet. The last thing we have to do before this web shooter is complete is make a reloading stick that will allow us to load the string into the web cartridge easily. So here is how you prepare the web shooter. First, you slide the bullet into the barrel and lock it in. Then you want to pull that string all the way through to the back. Once you've pulled the string all the way through, you can wrap that around the reloading stick like this. Then simply push all of that string down into the web cartridge and then insert that web cartridge into the web shooter. Well, one more thing I want to mention is that if you want more range, you're going to want to use a shorter string, and that will greatly improve the distance of your shot because there won't be as much drag. Now, the downside to this is that if you want to catch the string, it will be a little bit more challenging because you won't have as much time to catch it. On the flip side, if you want a more prolonged shooting duration, then use a longer string, and that will also really help you to catch the string as well because you'll obviously have more time before the string leaves your hand. The downside to this, however, is that having a longer string of course creates more friction, which will decrease your range a little bit. So you can, play around with the string length a little bit, maybe even make multiple bullets with different string lengths, but yeah, just have fun with it. Hey, well, if you liked this video, then you'll probably like my Iron Spider web shooter too, so click or tap the screen to check out that video. Thank you so much to my patrons Bill Ribble, Anthony Riolo, and Max Trax. And if you would like to become a patron as well, there's a link in the description to my Patreon page. But hey, you can always support this channel for free by subscribing to see my future videos.